Welcome back, fantasy managers. This is Devo1099 with Fantasy Football Backers. Game week 31. We missed last week. This is a shortened week. Didn't really think there's much to tell you about a two-game Saturday slate. So this week is a bit better. We've got 6 games on Saturday, 5 games that will be included in the main contest, and 4 games Sunday. So you can legitimately play both days, which I'm sure will be good for your friends and family. But we're a little bit short on time between Champions League and Europa this week. We've been busy, so I was fortunate enough to win a seat to the King of the Pitch final in Draftkings via Champions League. I sent my team out. My strategy there was pretty similar. I was just, honestly, I just decided to fade most of the game's attackers on Tuesday, and it worked out. It's not too much more complicated than that. Alexandro was one of the players that I was hoping would be in the team on Wednesday as well. So that worked out for me. And then because I was behind and because there was a manager that had 3 teams in the contest, I decided to pivot to Neymar. Well, I had Neymar and Costa originally, and I pivoted to Neymar and Mueller, which really didn't make much of a difference. Costa and Mueller both were good, but it was certainly for excitement purposes. Mueller's late goal was big. So I would love to see you guys join me in the final. There's plenty of room left. I think there's still 40 seats available. I'll be taking a shot at at least one more I'd like, so that I can have some options come May. But pretty excited about that. Good to get that off my back and ready to go. So we're gonna get through the Saturday slate here pretty quickly. I might be able to get something written up for Sunday as well. And if you're going to look at that slate, you've got the Manchester Derby, which is huge, and then Newcastle and Sunderland, which is huge for the other side of the table. So opening with Chelsea and West Ham. Chelsea at home, they're a lot closer to being Chelsea of last year now, and they're a team that has been playing very well. They've been solid throughout. Costa got himself suspended, which is not altogether surprising. So that's the big position that we'll be looking for. We're either going to get Traore up top, which at midfield on DraftKings for 3,300. Ben Dinnery mentioned that Remy would be first choice if he's fit. The chances of him being fit seem very slim, but if he's fit, he's only 3,100 at forward, so that would be a very attractive price for a team that has been scoring goals. Remy also gets crosses occasionally, so at 3,100 to be able to lock up a forward position, I think you'd have to look at him. Traore is a little bit trickier because he's a midfielder and because he's unlikely to get too many secondary points. He has been very good when he's played. I think I've used him at least twice now, and he's come through with a goal each time. So there's going to be a lot of positive thoughts towards Traore because essentially, if you've used him before, he's come through for you. So I think he might be more popular than he should be because of that. I think that for cash games, you're going to want to find players with more secure secondary points, and this week budget is not particularly a concern, so the attractiveness of him at 3,300 is a little bit lessened, but I think he is a very good play. I think that he'll definitely be on my short list, both for cash and tournaments. It kind of depends on how the other lineups shake out, and whether I want to take the risk of a player that could get me 3.5 or 23.5 if he has a great game. So Traore and Remy are certainly that's one big position to watch for when team news comes out an hour before the matches tomorrow. Courtois is a fine play. What they do, it sounds like Ivanovic and Izpilicueta, maybe the fullbacks, they're both kind of priced in. This isn't a good enough matchup for me to bother with them. Ivanovic is 4,100. You know, he's the old Ivanovic of last season would probably be well in play here, but he just hasn't been consistent enough for me to really consider, and I prefer not to spend much money in my defensive spots here. So Hazard is out, so that could potentially bring Pedro in. Or we may just get Willian, Oscar, and Fabregas at the 10. So if Oscar's playing wide, he's a decent play. If Hazard's out, I think Oscar would probably be on penalties. So he's probably going to be a reasonably low-owned player that has significant upside. So keep an eye on him if he's playing out wide. And Fabregas playing the 10 has been much more effective in that spot as well. I don't think it's an amazing matchup against West Ham, but they can score on them. And as you'll see here, I don't like West Ham going the other way too much. Besides Payet, has been he's been incredible all season. Sorry, I completely blew past Willian. Willian is one of the best players on the entire slate. At midfield, he's slowed a little bit because it seems like he's been sharing some of the set piece duty in corners. So he's sort of priced in. So he's a decent cash play because I think that he has a nice floor. I don't know if he's got the upside necessarily at 8,000, but definitely a good play this week. Payet at 8,400 is a little more interesting because he's just been incredible all season, and he's done it in what we thought were difficult matchups. He's done it at home. He's done it away. Chelsea is tough, but he's affordable this week. You can definitely get him in. You could probably get him in with Willian if you wanted to, and it's hard to imagine Payet not getting you 10 to 15 points. Now, if 10 points is enough, that's a question. But he's definitely going to be difficult to pass up unless I'm pretty confident in everything else. And, we'll see how that goes because this next game at Selhurst Park is Palace hosting Leicester. And Leicester has still conceded the most crosses on the season. Palace loves to cross. So this is, kind of an interesting matchup in that sense, despite the fact that Palace hasn't won yet in 2016. Part is pretty frustrated. I saw him. They shot to him in the stands for the Leicester match against Newcastle, scouting. So he theoretically has a game plan in place. He understands that he has a chance to play spoiler, and will hopefully have his team motivated at home to take down the eventual champions, Leicester City. But there's only a couple places that I'm actually willing to risk Palace, and that would be on the wings. You've got Zaha and Blassie. Zaha is 5,300, Blassie 5,700. Leicester will concede crosses. I don't know how effective those crosses will be when you've got Adebayor as the recipient of those crosses, but I assume that's a strategy that both Leicester and Palace are going to end up employing on that side. So it's going to depend on how much of the ball Palace can get. I could see them dig in and try to play the counter against Leicester. Leicester's not really a possession team, but a couple times here recently, Norwich, for instance, decided to let Leicester have the ball and then try to attack them on the counter. So could be something like that. Either way, Blassie and Zaha are both going to be involved and make for pretty decent plays. They're a little more expensive than you'd like in a matchup with what has become a very good defense. So Cabaye also, taking set pieces. He's 6,500. He gets some defensive work. if you really believe that Palace is going to come out and try to hit Leicester in the mouth, then he could be a play as well. But I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to fit him in. And then due to that aforementioned crossing, Suarez and Ward are both solid fullback plays. I'd lean towards Suarez if I was going to use one. So from Leicester, Vardy's at 7,700. Albrighton's up to 7,100 and doesn't have the most consistent minutes. Mahrez is 8,300. Fuchs is 5,300. So these are all players priced as they've performed as the season's gone on. I don't think you're getting a fair price for the matchup. I don't think it's a very good matchup. I do think Palace is going to be up for this game, and I think they're going to play fairly well. I could certainly be wrong. It's happened, but at those prices, I'm pretty comfortable fading. The one problem is defender is sort of a dead zone. So Fuchs at 5,300 is a bit more palatable. He's been very, very consistent. He's more than likely to get you 10 points. Just like I said, like, is 10 points going to be enough? It kind of depends on how the game week shakes out. If there's good goals everywhere else, you're not going to be so happy with 10 points out of a player at 5,300. So, Vardy, Mahrez, Albrighton, I'm not going to tell you not to play them. If you think Palace is finished for this season and they're going to lay down and Leicester's going to win this 3-0, then by all means, they'll be very affordable if they score 3 goals. So, we've been wrong about Leicester most of the season, all of us. So I could definitely be wrong here, and they're in play in that case. But I'm personally going to pass. So next match is Watford and Stoke. This shapes out to be a fairly interesting match. I think it'll be relatively boring. Shaqiri is going to be missing from Stoke, which kind of limits what they can do. But Watford are fine to give the ball away. So I think we're going to see Stoke with a fair amount of crosses. Watford, concedes one of the most amounts of crosses on the season. So with DraftKings, that's very relevant. I think Gomez at 3,800 for Watford is a decent play because there's nobody on Stoke that I'm particularly concerned about scoring. Olabas at 2,800, Ake at 3,300 are both fine. Then you've got the attacking trio now for Watford. Amrabat's been pretty good. He's 2,700. Dini is 5,600. Igalo is only 6,400, and he did pick up a knock, and sounds like he faces a latent fitness test, but most reports seem to point to him playing. And I think that at a difficult forward position this week, Igalo is very much in play if he's starting. He did get a goal against Arsenal in the FA Cup, and he still has some of the most touches in the penalty box. He has some of the most shots on the season. He's still been a very productive player, though his goal tally has slowed slightly. So I think maybe between the knock and between his form in the Premier League, he may be under-owned, and I don't think that is a good decision necessarily. I think that he could be a very good pick this week. It's with Stoke. If Afla is on corners, he's only 3,600. I don't know how many corners they're going to have. He's probably going to take set pieces as well, but we may see a different lineup altogether. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Arnautovic on penalties and playing out wide, probably on any direct free kicks. Like I said, forward is tough. He's only 5,400, but not the best matchup. It's just it's more likely to be a droll, quiet match than it is full of goals. So for that reason, Bardsley's back. He's 2,600. Pieter's on the other side should be playing. And Butland at 3,300 seems pretty cheap to me. So if you're trying to save some budget, I think Butland is fine. Gallo might ruin your afternoon, but I don't think it's an unreasonable play. So 2 more games to go here. We've got West Brom hosting Norwich, which should be a pretty ugly game. There's nothing on Norwich that I'm interested in. Robbie Brady is, the poster boy for DraftKings stats. Not only does he put in some work defensively, but his crossing and corners and set pieces can be very effective. He is 5,800, though he is a doubt. It sounds like he might play. If he's playing fullback at 5,800, it's possible. I could see playing him. West Brom is probably going to bunker down and allow crosses and allow Norwich to attack a little bit. They're also going to do a fair amount of attacking of their own. So Brady is on my radar. It kind of depends on how these lineups shake out. Then the options for West Brom are significant because none of their players are very expensive. This is one of the best matchups that West Brom can have, a home match against a potentially relegated team. And they're all inexpensive. So you've got Foster, 3,900, Dawson, 4,200, Gardner, 4,200, Sessegnon, 4,200, Berahino, 3,500, Rondon, 4,200. Choosing between Berahino and Rondon is fairly difficult. My inclination is that Berahino is still on penalties if he's in the game. Rondon is a much better physical presence if they're able to get crosses in that he could get on the end of one or knock one down and rifle a shot in. So I'd be fine with either. I don't think you can play both. Just because who knows if they're going to get more than one goal if they score at all. Gardner has been on all set pieces and corners, though he did have a disappointing match the last time out. And then Sessegnon is a bit of a wild card. He's going to be attacking down against the Norwich left, which is one of the weakest flanks in all of football, or English football certainly. So Sessegnon, he hasn't been on corners, so that takes a little bit of the shine off of him, but I think that he would be a pretty strong GPP play. Finishing up the match that we will not have lineups for in advance, which is unfortunate because it's a match that we definitely would want lineups for. We can be pretty confident that Sigurdsson will be in. He's 7,500, and he will probably be about as close to 100% ownership as we can see. In any game week, it's just he is a little bit expensive, but it's hard to not play him here. If you're playing in a large contest and you want to consider not using him and hoping he gets hurt or doesn't score a goal or assist a goal or whatever, that's fine. He will be so highly owned that if he doesn't come up big and you can find a player that does play well, then by all means do it. I don't really think that there are that many options in this slate where that would make sense, but surprisingly, there are slightly attractive forward options here for Swansea. You've got Pelosi at 4,300. Barrow played very well last match. He's 3,700. He sent in a few crosses. One just barely got touched, and so he didn't get an assist, but probably should have, and he had a goal. So he could have had a massive match. He does have a knock as well, so there's a chance he doesn't play. So in that case, due to late swap on DraftKings, you're going to want to leave. You're going to want to leave up to 4,300, even if you want Barrow, unless we get more clarity on his his availability. IU is out. He's back in France. And then you've also got Gomis. If Gomis plays, he's 4,000. So if you really wanted to gamble and you didn't want to potentially eat 600 out of your budget, you could leave 4,000, have that intended for Barrow. If Barrow doesn't play and Gomis does, then you can use Gomis at 4,000. If you don't do that, it seems likely that you're going to be dropping back to one of the fullbacks, so you're going to have your flex position available, which also kind of negates the attractiveness of Pelosi or Barrow in the first place, is that they're eligible at forward, which is always a tough position. So my feeling there would be, carve out 4,300 for Pelosi, either plan on playing him. And if Barrow plays and you decide you prefer Barrow, if you need, a few points more than you need a goal, you can play Barrow and swap back to him. I think Pelosi is a pretty solid matchup here. Villa is just so bad defensively that he should have opportunities. Villa is also terrible in attack, so Fabianski is probably the best keeper play at 4,200, and Taylor and Rangel. Taylor's 3,000, Rangel 3,200. They both had some pretty decent games recently, and this is just a pretty solid matchup for Swansea. They've been playing better, so I could see using one or both of those fullbacks as well. And then from Villa, Hutton at 3,400 would be fine. You can't really predict whether Heel and Veretout and Bakuna are going to be in the lineup, and whether or not they'll take set pieces and corners. And I just am not that interested in the first place in Villa players. So Hutton may be at 3,400, but beyond that, I am probably off. So good luck this weekend. I'll try to get something in some form up for Sunday as well, because I think that will be worth playing. But Game Week 31, fantasy managers, best of luck to you. This is Fantasy Football Backers signing off.